Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rising Above Time Management, Choosing Productivity. My name is Patrick Barton. A little quick 30-second autobiography of myself. I'm a professor of speech communication at Lone Star College-Cy here in the Houston suburbs. I'm finishing my 14th year here at Lone Star College. So I'm starting my 15th year, really excited about that. Before this, I was at the College of Southern Nevada in Las Vegas, where I started as an adjunct instructor. I was also a college dropout at the age of 20. And I actually didn't even finish college for another 11 years. So I actually finally graduated, let's see, I believe it was 12 years after I started college. So I took the long route. I'm super busy, as I'm sure everybody here is. I do a lot of volunteering. I do some acting in community theater. I'm actually in a play right now here in the Houston area. I am a murder mystery actor. If anybody likes a good murder mystery, I do that every once in a while. I work out every day training for ultra marathons, and I just did my first 50-mile ultra in April, and I'm trying for 100 by the end of the year. I'm also a poker player. I just was at the World Series of Poker a couple weeks ago, and I placed pretty high in one of the tournaments that they gave for me. So that's me, busy. I'm sure we're all busy. There's a lot of people online, a lot of people here, so we won't have time to hear from all of you. But I'm sure you can relate. I'm sure we're all in this boat. That's why you're here today. You want to hear about time management. So here's what we're going to do. We're first going to I talk fast. I'm from the north. I know some people are online from the north too. I'm from the north, so I talk fast. If I talk too fast, just somebody throw something at me or just go slow down. I can slow down. Yeah, exactly. Today I'm going to talk about reframing time management. Then we're going to talk about creating a productivity system and then give some tips, tricks, and strategies. A lot of what I talk about is going to sound like advice, but I don't give advice. I believe that advice cannot ever be given. All I can do is talk to you about what I do, my observations, what I do, what I believe, my experiences, and then you get to pick and choose what you like, kind of like I'm your waiter at a restaurant. You should do that too. So if you don't like it, don't do it. But give it a try. Just you never know, maybe you'll like it. So I don't give you advice, but I will give you just some thoughts to think about. Cicero said, nobody can give you wiser advice than yourself. So whatever you do, give yourself some good advice. All right, so in our United States culture, what is the most common metaphor for time? Time is?
Money.
Money, yeah, exactly. Time is money. We hear this all the time. So I want to deconstruct that idea of time is money. So what do we mean by that? So we often hear, I'm going to borrow some time. I need to save time. I need to make time. I need to budget time, right? And those are the same things that we do when we talk about money. I need to save money, borrow money, make money, budget my money. So it's not uncommon for a metaphor, but I want to kind of break that down a little bit by first just looking at money. So let's imagine there's two people. One person has $1,000 in the bank. One person has $1 million in the bank. I'm a little closer to the person at the $1,000 mark. I'm going to make an educated guess that most people who are watching this right now are closer to the $1,000 mark than me, like me. So let's just say that both people took out $100. So that person has $900 left. This person has $999,900 left. So how would they spend the money? Would they spend it differently, the same? How would they treat that money, those two people who took it out? Any thoughts? And you can type it in your comments in the comment box if you want, or are they going to spend that money the same, or are they maybe going to treat it a little bit different? Thoughts for a sip of water while you think about that question. You got millionaires using it for leisure. Yeah, differently, D, absolutely. I would say, yeah, I believe, so I think they're going to do it differently. 1K is probably paying the bills, absolutely. If you have $1,000 in the bank, that $100, if you're a smart person with money, is going to go towards paying a bill. Probably not going to go buy some golden shoelaces, right? Person with $1 million, oh, I found these really cool golden shoelaces online. I'm going to buy those. So if they're smart, they're probably going to spend their money over there on something essential. This person, $100 is almost nothing to them. So money is something that we know how it works, right? Once you take that 1,000 out, you know how much is left. You can always replenish that $100, right? You can put it back in. You can also grow your balance. So that person with 1,000 could end up with 1 million one day. The person with 1 million could end up with 10 million. So those are the properties of money. So let's go look at the properties of time. Let's imagine we have a time bank. And I'm not talking about a time bank in the day, like not how many hours are there in a day. I'm talking about how many hours are there in your life. So let's just say you take a withdrawal of 60 minutes from your time bank of life. For however many years you're on this planet, you've chosen an hour of your time to see a guy talk about time for a while. That's how you decided to spend your time today. Unless you're watching this later on YouTube and you put it on 1.5 speed, in which case you want 45 minutes. It's a good use of time. I do that all the time. All right. So what is your time balance? That is how much time is left in your life. We don't know. That's the answer, right? We don't know. What about this? So you spent this hour, wasted time. Can you deposit more time to make up for this hour? Can you go like, you know what? I'm just gonna make an hour to make up for the hour you lost here, like you could with money. You can't do that. You can't make up lost or poorly spent time. This is a trick question, because I've had people argue with me about this. Can you grow your account of time? That is, however many years you have left on this earth, can you make it higher than what it is right now? Yeah, maybe, because you know what? If you eat right and you exercise and you're really careful, everything you do, could you theoretically live longer based on those choices? Yes, but what could happen? That's, by the way, what everybody says. I've given this particular part of the talk about 50 times, and every time somebody says get hit by a bus, which is weird because for those not in Houston, we're not known for our bus system here in Houston. I don't know why we say that here. We're not that kind of city. We're not a public transport kind of city. But yeah, everybody says, oh, you get hit by a bus. You do everything perfectly and you get hit by a bus. Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? Okay, that's what Alanis Morissette would say. She's wrong. So can you live longer? With good choices, you increase, here's what you do. I'm a poker guy. You increase your odds of living longer. But anybody who plays poker knows, even if you have a 90% hand, there's still a 10% chance you're going to lose, right? So there's still a chance, even though you do all the right things, you could still die by getting hit by a bus. So let's go back to money for just a moment. Let's go back to our imaginary bank account. If you didn't know how much money was left in your bank account, and there was no way to make more deposits, how would you spend that money every time you made a withdrawal? How would you spend it? If you took $100 out, and that may be your last $100, how would you spend that $100? Yeah, very carefully. You'd be super smart about how you're going to spend that money, because you don't know if that's your last $100. And I'm not trying to get dark here, but that's the reality of life. We don't know when our last withdrawal of time is, right? Hopefully for all of us and here, everybody online, it's another 60, 70 years from now, but we don't know that. So we got to get rid of this idea that time is money. Time is not money. It's just not even close. And when we talk about time being money, it cheapens the value of time, because time is literally the most valuable thing in our world, because it's the one thing that we only have a finite amount of, that we can't make more of, that can't be replenished. And once it's used, it's gone forever. That's what we know about time. So we got to get rid of that time is money mentality to begin. That's the first part of reframing. So I want to talk instead about something else that we have a lot of in our lives as well. We have a lot of time, but we have even more choices. How many choices do we make in a day? Throw a number out. Again, in those online, you can type it in the chat if you want. How many choices do we make in a day? Just throw a number. 100. 100 choices, okay? Anybody go higher or lower? Infinite, not a real number, but thousands. So infinite is closer than 100 though, I think. And that's because if you think about what a choice is everything you do plus everything you don't do, because not doing something is also a choice. So every moment you're choosing not to stand up on that table and throw something at me is a choice. You just made another choice, you made another choice, you made another choice. All the people online, every moment you're choosing not to log out, you're making another choice, another choice. Every second you're making choice, all over the place. So that's where we're at, is we're making choices all the time. It's a lot. Now, conscious, deliberate choice is probably closer to 100, right? Because most of the choices we're making, until I told you to think about getting on a table and throwing stuff at me, you probably weren't thinking about that. Even though you were choosing not to do that, that wasn't a conscious thought. Now it's a conscious thought, you can get an agree. But the conscious choices we make, probably closer to 100 today, like really deliberate conscious choices. Because a lot of our choices are unconscious. If you turn your turn signal on when you change lanes, that's a choice, right? Chances are you do that automatically without thinking about it, but that's a choice you've made in your life sometime previously that has just stuck with you, that becomes a muscle memory for you. So think about this. Everything we do is a choice pretty much. So we need to avoid what I like to call the no choice fallacy. A lot of people, when they think about time management, they think about, oh, I ran out of time. Oh gosh, I wish I had more time. If only there was more time, more hours in a week, more hours in a day. I just don't have enough time. So they say, I just didn't have a choice. This is what I had to do. I had to do this because, and that's not true. Everything is a choice. So going to work is a choice. Not going to work is a choice. Paying your rent, a choice or not a choice. Buying food, a choice or not a choice. If you have kids, picking them up from daycare, a choice or not a choice. And a lot of you would go, well, no, if I don't go to work, I'll get fired. Yeah, if I don't pay my rent, I'll get kicked out of my house. If I don't pick up my kids, they'll get taken away by CPS. And you may be going, oh, I don't want any of those things. And so that's not a choice. That is a choice. It's just what you're saying is the alternative of your choice is something that is unbearable for you, so you don't want to do that. But there are plenty of people who do all three of those things. They don't go to work, they don't pay their rent, they don't pick up their kids, and therefore they suffer the consequences. So everything is a choice, and we need to avoid the language of I didn't have a choice, I have to. It becomes a prison of circumstances, and we need to break out of that prison. We don't want to be in that prison anymore, because when we're in that prison of circumstances, we get stuck in our heads like, oh, I am the victim of my life, as opposed to being the agent of your life, being somebody who controls your own life. So we need to be deliberate with those choices we're making, because everything leads us to our final destination. So as we look at this picture, how many destinations are there? How many paths could you take if you were in this spot and if this was a real place? How many places could you go? Infinite, yeah, right? That's the correct path. That is the correct answer. You could go, a lot of people go, oh, there's 3 paths. True, but why couldn't you go through? And I hate this little, WebEx has changed their format, I hate that. You could go through the grass, you could go there. You could go backwards. You could go up. You could go down, right? There's a lot of places you could go. So this is something to think about choices. Our choices are limited, right? If you only got an apple and an orange, those are your choices. I want a banana. Well, that's what you have. You have an apple and an orange. You can't have a banana. So you do have limitations on these. So if I go back here again, yeah, infinite if you have the right resources, right? Do you have a way to dig? Do you have something to climb up into the air? What are your options? Because even though it is infinite in theory, with unlimited resources, it's not actually unlimited. So we have to be aware that choices, I said you always have a choice. Yes, you always have a choices within a set of limitations. So there's obvious limitations like money, education, our available time that we have. Others are less obvious, that our background, our history, our experiences. Some are just not changeable, like our level of past opportunities, our privilege. Some things we just don't have any control over. So making choices is just not easy, but there is a different choice available to you. And that's what I'm a professor, so I try to tell my students that. I'm like, please don't just get stuck in this, I have to. You don't have to. You have to figure out what your limitations are, and within those limitations, figure out what your actual choices are. So I want to reframe time management for you. Time management, I want to argue, is not possible. I know you came to a seminar on time management. I'm telling you right now, you can't do time management. And the reason you can't do it is because we can't manage what we don't control. We don't control time, but we do control choices. Therefore, I want to reshift your brain to think about choice management instead of time management. Because when we start doing that, we start taking control of our lives and we stop letting time be the boss of us. We're now the boss of our choices. And we do with our choices, we use time, but we're not in charge of it. It's a mental shift. For most people, this is a mental shift, but big steps come from mental shifts, and it's a hard change to come across because there's literally 50,000 books written about. I looked it up on Amazon. 50,000 books about time management. So we've been brainwashed into thinking that we can manage time, but we can't. We can manage money, because money, we can control what we do with it, what we don't. The people management, we can't really manage people either, right? Because people are independent human beings. So we can't manage what a person chooses to do or not do. We can influence them, and we can influence time in the way we decide to use it. But get out of the mindset of time management and move into choice management. So this is the new name of our seminar today. Mastering Choice Management, Choosing Productivity. Now, if I made that the original title, nobody would have come, because I don't want to hear about choice management. I want to hear about time management. But your job is to go forward, and the next time you hear somebody talk about time management, just say, oh, we talk about choice management instead, because it's so much more powerful to talk about choosing or not choosing something versus, oh, I ran out of time. Okay, everybody has the same number of hours in a day. You made a choice on what to do with your time. Why did you make those choices? That's the question. Okay. So now into part 2, creating a choice management system. But before we do that, we really have to talk about priorities and boundaries. So here's some questions to consider, and these are questions I want you to ponder, and you're welcome to answer them online or just think about these in your head. What are some of the most important aspects of your lives, and how should those parts of our lives be prioritized? And hopefully you're doing that. Hopefully you're already doing this on some level. For me, this is how I used to look at this. My family, my loved ones, number 1. Number 2, work, right? Got to pay the bills. Number 3, volunteering obligations, because that's really important to me. Number 4, training for a triathlon or ultra marathons, things like that. That's kind of important to me. And then number 5, I love the movies, going to the movies, maybe going to the theater. That's my favorite. And there's, your list could be pages long. There is something missing here, though. What's missing? There's something missing here that should be there. What's there? What's not there? Work is there. Work's number 2. The Family Feud. Time. That's not a bad answer. I've never had anybody say that. Oh, Christina got it. Thank you, Christina and Dee. You're missing yourself. So actually, if I were to redo this, I should be the number 1 thing, followed by the rest, right? And the reason for that is because if I am not alive and well and healthy, I can't help my family. I can't work. I can't volunteer. I can't do anything if I am not alive and healthy. And this feels the opposite of what a lot of, and especially I'm not a parent, but I've talked to parents before. They're like, oh, my kids come first. And I'm like, I hope not. Because if your kids come first, what happens if you get sick? Right? You've got to be there for them. So you got to take care of yourself before you take care of your kids. And this turns into the oxygen mask metaphor, which I'm sure you've heard before. I've been talking about this for 7 or 8 years, but lately I've been hearing this a lot more lately. I'm like, somebody stole this from me before I could write it in my book. Okay. So you can't help yourself. You can't help anybody else if you haven't helped yourself. And in an airplane, when you're on an airplane, they tell you if there's an emergency and the oxygen masks come down, what do they tell you to do? Put on yourself. If you're traveling with somebody else, put your own on first before you help somebody else. That feels selfish. Oh, I'm taking care of myself first. No, because other people can't be helped if you are passed out. So help yourself and then help others. That is the rule. And that's something we have to embrace. So I have another seminar I do called the Pillars of Self-Care. These are the pillars, making sure you have enough time for sleep, shooting for 7 to 9 hours a night, time for physical activity, time for preparing and eating healthy meals. This is the big one though, time for you. Try to set aside at least 10 hours a week where you're doing something for yourself. Now that could include other people. It could include your family or friends, but it should not be for your family and friends. It should be for you. And if they happen to tag along, great. This is hard. By the way, that's actually lower than what a study I read said it should be like 4 to 5 hours a day. I'm like, really? 4 to 5? Like, yeah, 35, 40, 50 hours. It should be, but that's just not the reality that we live in this world. I feel like that's hard to do. Now, I can count things like when I go running. I feel like that's time for me, so I can double count that. Now, you can't double count sleep. Yeah, sleep is for you, but that's not for you. You sleep. It's a biological imperative, right? So finding this time is really important so that you stay healthy. All right. Let's talk about boundaries for a minute here. So as we move into our choice management system, we need to think about the expectations that happen with all of our stakeholders. That includes our coworkers, our supervisors, if we have people that report to us, if we're professors, it includes our students, our family, our friends, pretty much anybody who you interact with on a daily basis. We need to have expectations set up about how we will conduct ourselves with the time we have in a day. We have 24 hours in a day. You should be sleeping at least 7 of those hours. You're eating, 2 of those hours. So do it all out. With the extra hours you have left over, how are you going to spend that time? This means we have to have kind of meaningful conversations with those stakeholders, with the people we care about, so that we are making sure they understand where we're coming from and we know where they're coming from. This includes learning how to say no. This is one of the words I still have problems with. If you're watching this right now, if you're in this room, chances are you're people that don't say no a lot, because you are right now seeking out extra training on a day where you could probably be doing something else. So that's hard. And a lot of us have gotten to where we are because we said yes a lot to a lot of opportunities, and that's how we got where we are. And that's good, but it's also not good. So we need to figure out that balance, those boundaries, right? So here's a quick tip. I'm going to throw a few tips out at you coming up here in the next few minutes. Don't check your work email at home if it's possible for you. Now, sometimes we have deans or vice presidents and presidents. You best be sure that Dr. Nutt, who's the president here at Tomball, is checking her email at home. She kind of has to, right? Because if Mario Castillo, our chancellor, emails her or texts her, she's got to respond. So there are exceptions to this. But if you're not in one of those high-level administrative positions, I encourage you to not check your email at home. Or if you are going to do it, limit it to checking at a certain time, and then also touch base with your supervisor to let them know what you're going to be doing. If they expect you to be answering your emails at home, just say, hey, I'm going to be phone away, I'm going to check it from 8 to 8:30. So if you email me after 5 o'clock when I leave, I'm going to check one time at 8:30, and then I'm going to check again the next morning. So if you email me after 8:30, I may not get back to you. But that's a negotiation with your supervisor, by the way. That's not you telling them this is what I'm going to do. It's like you going to them and say, hey, I really am trying to balance my life out more. This guy from Cy said, this is what I should do. Can I do this? And they're gonna say, hey, this is my idea. Does this work for you? And then you have a negotiation, right? You can't dictate to your boss what's going to happen, but you can at least have a conversation about it. I also encourage you at home to create work-free conversational zones. And that could be a physical area, or it could be a time of day. So for the living room, we don't talk about work. Or dinner time, we don't talk about work. Just so you can talk about other things, because work consumes us, and that makes sense. Other than sleep, we spend more time working than anything else, right? So we're sleeping about 35 hours a week. We're working 40 hours a week, right? Minimum 40 hours for most of us. Some of us are working more. So we need those work-free zones. So we've talked about the boundaries and the priorities. Now we can talk about a choice management system. So step number one is just figuring out how much time you have in a week. There's we all know how much time we have. We have 168 hours a week. There's 168 hours, that's 24 hours a day, times 7 days a week. So from there, we do an analysis. So out of that 168, I'm going to be sleeping 35 hours, 168 minus 35, and I'm going to be spending average of 2 hours a day eating and preparing meals, so it's 4 minus 14, and I'm going to be driving to work. That's a 45-minute round trip times 5, and so you do the math and you see how many hours out of the 168 do you have left over after you input everything that you're doing. And that gives you kind of this balance, like this is how many hours I have left over for me and for the things I want to try to do. And then the next step is, now that you know how much time you have on your hands and where the time is going, and you'll be surprised, a lot of people have no idea where their time is going. I have my students do this in my class. They fill out a survey and I create a little spreadsheet for them. And some of them are spending 200 to 300 hours a week on doing things. And I'm like, there's only 168 hours in a week. You're bad at math. Okay. So you got to figure this out. I know you feel like you're doing this, but you're not. So it's like having that awareness is super important. Next, I encourage you to read articles, books, talk to colleagues, and ChatGPT, by the way, ChatGPT assisted me with some of my slides today as far as helping me brainstorm some things. ChatGPT is actually excellent for this kind of thing. Just asking ChatGPT, what are some of the best systems of making productivity happen in my life? and it can give you a whole bunch of ideas. So by doing that, you have a sense of what's out there. There are, again, 50,000 books about this topic. And I will tell you this, no one book will work for you for the rest of your life. All of them will say they are. Covey and David Allen and all these people, I've read their books, they're great. And you know what? Pieces of what they do will work for you. And some of what, in fact, all of what they do may work for a while. But eventually it's not going to work anymore. And that's because those books are written for those people. Like they have their system, and I have my system. I'm going to show you my systems in a second. Parts of my system may work for you, and parts of my system may not work for you. But also my systems have changed. This is my system from 2017 to 2018, and this is my system today. I've got, this is really different. And these are really, really different systems, right? So, and I've had different systems in between. So this is an 8-year span right here. So part of this process is to formulate whatever system you're going to have for productivity, for choice management, and then test it out, try it out. Go to one of those books, read the book, or ask the ChatGPT, what should I do? Try something out. Then you evaluate how it's going, and then you tweak it and repeat it. So do it over and over again. I recommend trying anything out for at least a month, because the first few days you're getting adjustment, and then the next week it may feel really good, and then a week later you're like, oh, I'm not sure about this anymore, and then that final week you kind of figure this out, and then just reevaluate it all. So I'm not here today to give you a system, because there is no system that will work for you. There's a system, well, there is a system that will work for you, but only you know that system, and only you can come up with that system. You have to write your own book by taking the best ideas from other people. I am going to share some tips and strategies and techniques that I do later on, and you're welcome to try those out. But I'm not here to give you a magic wand of, oh, if you do this, everything's going to be magically better. Just some ideas for you to think about. So yeah, don't, if you pick up like Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or if you pick up David Allen's, one of my favorite books, Getting Things Done. It's a really good system. Just don't follow it like, oh my gosh, this is it. I got to do exactly everything David Allen says. That's just not how it works. So you got to really look into it and think about it, and work it into your life however best it goes. All right, so I already showed you my system. So my current system is this. I have this little book, Sage. Thank you, Sage, the textbook company, for giving me this. And what I do is every day I write down a list of what I want to get done. And over here I write down how many emails I have left to file. And then sometimes I'll write down other tasks I have to do that are like weekly tasks, but these are all daily tasks. And then as I do them, I cross them off. And if I don't get them all done, I leave them there. And then I do little lines. This is my system. I like pen and paper. I used to do like a typed system like this and print it out, or have a system online, but that's what I do right now, and I really like it. It feels good. I combine that a little bit with Outlook and designing a schedule in Outlook that allows me to block off time. I'm going to talk about that more in a moment as well. Right. Well, this is I've talked way faster than I thought, so I can slow down now. I was really worried I was going to run out of time, so I was like, "What's that?" Oh, this is it. Oh, yeah, if you have questions, you're welcome to ask it anytime. Thank you. Your mic too. Oh, your mic for that. Yeah, you want to unmute somebody? Oh, okay. Anyway, I'm going to slow down now because I have plenty of time left. I will talk a little slower.
Okay, we do have a question.
I do, yes. What was the question?
The question is, how much time do you spend making your list? LOL. Is that your personal time?
So at the beginning of each day, and sometimes I do it the day before, depending on how I feel at the end of the day, I will make my list. It only takes me about 10 minutes to make my list because I know what I need to be working on. But that's just because I know what I need to be working on. So you have to have started with a base of, I know what needs to be done in my life. Some people create a master list of, these are the big projects I'm working on. As a professor, my life is very mundane in that I always am doing the same thing. I'm either grading or prepping, grading or prepping, grading or prepping. So those are my tasks. If you're in a different position where you have different projects that come up and those projects need to be handled in different ways, you need to start off by creating like a master list of like, these are all the things that go with this project, and these are the things that go with this project, and then coming up with deadlines for everything. That's not something I have to deal with as much in my role as a as a professor in my role as I'm also faculty fellow for our teaching, our learning engagement and development center at Cy, which is basically our professional development arm over there. I have some projects like that, so I do a little bit of that as well. So I think it can be anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes a day, just doing some planning. Although if you have a good feel for it, it probably shouldn't take that long. Yeah.
Second question, do you make a list or just work task or for everything?
I'm not sure if I quite understand the question.
Are you making a list just for work? Make a list for your life.
Oh, yeah.
Different tasks. I'll ask.
Yeah. So actually, sometimes I do. If I'm really behind on cleaning at home, I have on my phone. I have a today, and then I make a little bubble, like a little thing. A little checklist. I can check it off as I go. A little note on my phone. If I am a little behind, because sometimes I do get behind, and I'm like, oh, my dishes are piling up, and if I don't write it down, I may not do it. Like I've got to. It needs to be written, or I'll do it eventually, but it'll be too late. It's going to be too much. So I do believe there is value in making lists for all parts of your life, if that works for you. Some people that works for. Some people just do the dishes every other day because that's just what they do. I don't use my dishwasher because I don't like my dishwasher, so I do all my dishes by hand. So I let them pile up for a little while. It's just, I'm a weirdo like that. I find some comfort in doing dishes, but yet I leave them for too long. All right, let's talk about some more tips. And some of what I've already talked about is going to be repeated in here. So when we are not distracted, we are most productive. So let me ask you this. What is the greatest distraction that exists in the year 2024? Social media, which is on our phone. Yeah, this is the biggest distraction. So earlier today, and the reason this is actually a new slide I just added this morning. And the reason is because I was listening to a podcast this morning. I was on my run, ran about 5 miles, and I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about social media, and they were talking about phones and phone dependency, phone addiction. And so I said, I need to add a slide about this because this is literally the biggest distraction we have. So what's that?
Well, listen to her.
Yeah, but I was running, so I wasn't looking at that. See, listening is different. So so what I did is, when I got back to my office this morning to add these slides, I decided I was going to put my phone across the room because this is one of my strategies I'm going to tell you. It's to put the phone so it's not in hand's reach. So I went and plugged it in across the room, and then I would be working on this for a little while, and then I would reach for my phone. And I'm like, oh, it's over there. Because looking at our phone is just so second nature that you're doing it, you're not even realizing. And I encourage you to just try this experiment. Try for an hour today to put your phone somewhere where it's not accessible to you, and think about how many times you reach for your phone or look in your pocket. And you're like, oh, it's a tick. It's not even just a tick though. It's a compulsion. Because phones have become so addicted to us. This is really bad. There's a lot of research, if you have kids, there's a lot of research about how bad it is for kids. It's really, really bad for kids. And it's not just the social media, it's the screen time. Now, the majority of people here can remember a time before smartphones existed. And somehow we made it through thousands of years of humankind without smartphones. But I'll be honest. If I leave my wallet at home and I'm halfway to work, I'll leave it. But if I have time to go back and get my phone, I'll go back and get my phone if I have time. Because being without my phone feels no. And that's messed up. Because literally, I spent the first 30 plus years of my life without a phone in my pocket. And somehow this has become this thing where it's always around and it's always there for us. So how can we do this? So first of all, let's do this right now. If you have your phone, pull out your phone and look at your screen time. I'll tell you mine. I won't be embarrassed. Today it's actually low. It might be because I'm doing this. So far today, I'm only at 3 hours and 6 minutes of screen time today. Now, to be fair to myself. Oh yeah. So if you're on an iPhone, you can go to settings. And go to, where's screen time? Or you can just search. When you go to settings, just go to search and type in screen time. It'll show up. If you're on a Droid, it's called health and wellness or wellness settings. Is that what it is? and it will tell you your screen time. You can also look at a daily average. So I'm sad to say my daily average from the last week is 7 hours and 2 minutes a day. Now, some of that, how much is yours? I see you showing it.
3 hours.
Well, that's nothing. That's really low. That's great. Now, some of my 7 hours is I'm in a play, so I'm memorizing lines, and I have an app that allows me to memorize lines. So I'm spending an average of an hour and a half a day just on that app. So I see that as a productivity tool versus not an addiction tool. But if I also look at, like, if I go through today, I'll talk to you about my totals for today. So I love Reddit. I don't know if anybody else here is a Reddit person. I spent 32 minutes on Reddit so far today. I've spent 14 minutes on Spotify. Now, again, that's probably just playing in the background. 11 minutes on Facebook, that's not bad. I play this game called Brawl Stars, only 7 minutes, but if I go to yesterday, I spent an hour and 45 minutes on Reddit, 30 minutes on Brawl Stars. So it adds up, right? Yesterday, by the way, only 5 hours and 55 minutes, so I feel much better. But the first thing is just awareness. What are you spending the time on, and how can we spend less time? So set goals for how much time you want to spend. And it actually doesn't matter what the goal is. If your average is 7 hours like mine is right now, say I want to get down to 6 hours in the next week. I'm gonna be mindful about this. And then keep going down and down and down. Turn off pop-up notifications on your phone. So make it so nothing pops up on your screen. No text messages, no nothing. You don't need those pop-up notifications. You can, every once in a while, you can just go check if you want to. You can put the phone away across the room, like I mentioned. They actually sell these lock boxes with a little lock on it, where if you put it in, you can set how much time, and it's locked in there for that amount of time. You can't get to it. It's a pretty good idea. That's a good thing. Set app time limits. So on your phone, now I'm not sure about the Android. No, Android has it. I looked it up earlier today. On your phones, you can actually set how much time you spend on an app. Now I have an app. I have a time limit set on my Reddit and on one of my games that I play. Here's the problem: is you can override it. So yeah, you could put parental controls on your own phone, and then have somebody else set the password. but that is part of the problem. So you have to have some it's a choice. You have to have some level of self-control. Also create screen-free zones in your home. So maybe say no phones at the kitchen table, or no phones in the living room, or no phones in blank. No phones in the car, wherever you say. We're not, this is other than maybe you need it for navigation, but no, I don't want anybody on their phone during this time. That also, by the way, if you have kids, creates a good model for your children as well, to have those conversations. Because that was one of the podcasts I was listening to. That's what's happening, is kids are getting addicted at such a young age. And literally there are dopamine hits that are happening from phones. Like there are things, by the way, notifications create a little dopamine hit. That's why turning notifications off helps take us away from that and weans us off this. It's an addiction. It's not good, and we need to be aware of that. Also, this is a weird thing, but you can change your phone to grayscale, which means it will no longer be in color. None of the apps, nothing will be in color. It will just be black and white, basically. What's that? Like a Kindle. Yeah, exactly. Another dopamine hit comes from the lights and it activates our brain in a certain way. And by putting on grayscale, we're less likely to want to look at it because it's not activating. And by the way, this is why slot machines work really well in Vegas, because they're like, they create a connection in our brain, like video games. These things create connections, and app designers and phone designers are trying to get you to keep coming back to their devices. Because the more you're on their device, the more you're relying on it, the more you're likely to run the battery down, buy a new one soon, or use their apps, buy their apps, pay for their apps, right? So these are all things that happen. Also, delete apps you don't need access to all the time. I need my Google Maps. Because you know what? Somewhere along the way, we forgot how to get places. But I also remember a time when we just had to know how to get places. Now I use my phone. Even if I'm going somewhere I've been a million times, use my phone because maybe it has a way to get me there 1 minute faster. So I use that. That's fine. But if you don't need Facebook on your phone, delete Facebook off your phone. If you don't need TikTok or whatever, access it on your computer instead. Force yourself to use social media on a device that is less convenient. And I'm saying this to a generation of people mostly here, I believe, that probably can handle that. Try telling that to like a 16 or 17-year-old, just delete the app. Like, I feel like most people in that age group, we do have one. Jen, are you Gen Z? You're a Gen Z.
When I'm on the cusp. So 99. So 99.
Okay. Barely. So think about like, and again, go through those and go, do I need to be on, I'm not on Facebook that much, maybe 15, 20 minutes a day. Do I need to even be on Facebook for 20 minutes a day? Could I just check 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night and that would be enough? Probably. Like, am I missing? Honestly, Facebook kind of sucks. I mean, like, it's not great. It's not great. Instagram is obviously better. But I just, I'm not my generation. Instagram person. Other strategies for minimizing. So this, I have a whole slide on this. This is huge because if you can get to a place where you're not looking at your, great statistic I heard this morning, and I'm citing without a source. I apologize to my professor friends out there. But if you're distracted by a text message, it takes on average 23 minutes to get refocused back on what you were doing when you were distracted. So think about that. That's why notifications that come through on your watch, on your phone that you're answering right away, all of a sudden you've lost 23 minutes of productivity time. And how many text messages you're replying to in a day. So that's huge, right? And so setting aside times, I'm going to look at my phone for messages at lunch, and making all of that, more deliberate and more not just going to pick up your phone every 5 seconds. Do I have notifications? I can't tell you. I do that. I'm like, notifications. I look down, kind of bummed out. Kind of makes me sad too, right? So break that cycle. Break it. And I need to do it too. By the way, I'm talking to myself just as much as I'm talking to you here, because obviously I have a problem as well. Other strategies for minimizing distractions. On your computer in your workspace, turn off Outlook notifications, because that little thing that pops up that says you got an email is the same as a text message. Of course, you're going to want to go look at it right away and reply right away. And again, that interrupts your workflow, and now you have to get back into your workflow. So you just turn that off, and plus that annoying sound is really annoying anyway. I do leave on my notifications for meetings because I'm not great at meetings sometimes, so I have that 15-minute notification, which is helpful. But I think just like your email notifications can be really good. Determine your attention threshold for different parts of the day. For me, I do great in the morning. Give me something to do like at 9, 10 a.m. I can do great at that. Give me something to do like 1 or 2 p.m. Okay, it's not bad. Give me something to do at 5 or 6 p.m. It better not be anything that requires my brain, because I got no brain left at 5 or 6 p.m. So determine what your attention thresholds are. Are you a morning, an afternoon, or an evening person? And be mindful about the way you're scheduling your tasks. So for example, if I'm just filing emails, I'm just going through and trying to clean out my inbox. I'm not really replying. I'm just like moving them from an inbox into a folder. That doesn't require a lot of brain power on my part. I'm going to do that in the late afternoon or evening when I'm tired. But if I'm working on something like I'm grading and my students want me to give them good feedback, I'm going to do that in the morning, right? So think about what time of day and what is the attention level you need for that task, so that you can make sure your attention threshold is really maximized. I did a whole session on this. Did I do this at, forgot where I did this, but I did one called Notice to Self. Was it at, was it Innovation? Oh, it was an Innovation Symposium. Oh yeah, it was here. Excellent. So Notes to Self, and what this is using either future emails to yourself. So all email programs permit you to send future emails. So in Outlook, it's like you do a little drop down, you say send in the future. Gmail does it, all these do it. So you just send in the future and remind yourself what you want to do. Like put your phone away. So I could send myself an email right now that's going to send tomorrow at 8 a.m. and that way it'll be at the top of my inbox when I get in the morning. Put your phone away to remind myself, this is what I want to do. This is what today Patrick wants tomorrow Patrick to do. By sending those future, what I call notes to self, you are you're basically just communicating with a future version of yourself that may have forgotten your goals or what you're trying to accomplish. And you can do that with a lot of things. There's a lot of things that Note to Self help with, but I think that's one is that to minimizing distractions. So there's two kinds of people. There's people that thrive on doing multiple things at once, and there's people that just can't do that. And our brains all work differently, and we all have different wirings up there. So first of all, figure out which person you are. If you're a person who cannot focus on one thing for any period of time, you need to switch tasks, then you're that person who is a multitasker. Versus if you're the kind of person, when you switch tasks, it takes you a long time to get into that task, you're not a multitasker. So don't multitask unless your brain needs you to multitask. Like your brain needs that. Me, I am that person. It is hard for me, even in the morning when I'm fresh, to focus on something for more than 30, 45 minutes at a time. I need to switch to something else because I just lose attention. I may have undiagnosed like ADHD or something. I don't know. Because when I was a kid, we didn't diagnose that stuff. I don't know. Like, oh, maybe I'm not. I have no clue. But I feel like that's maybe where I'm the category. Whereas if you can focus, if you can just sit down and do 3 hours of the same task, don't switch to other tasks. And that's why don't check your email. Don't do things like that in the middle of your work, because that's your best work time. And then build in breaks and rewards. Actually say, no matter how much time you're able, if you can do 25 minutes or 45 minutes, or you can do 3 hours, set a timer and say, in 3 hours, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to play a game on my phone, or I'm going to have a snack that I like, or I'm going to watch a YouTube video that I like, and I'm going to come back to work. So build in those breaks and rewards so that you are, so that you have something to look forward to, however long that might be. By the way, I mentioned some things that are communication changes. If you're that person who has your Outlook notifications on, so every time you get an email, you respond within 5 seconds, and you stop responding within 5 seconds to people who are used to you responding within 5 seconds, all of a sudden people are going to wonder, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? So if you're going to stop checking your text messages or stop checking your email every 5 minutes, tell the people that communicate with you most frequently what you're doing, so they don't worry about you, or they don't think you're slacking off, right? Because when you're making some of these are big changes, right? Like some of these are really big changes. If you're not going to look at your phone for several hours and people are texting you all day, they're going to be worried about you, because we have come to expect people to communicate in a certain way. So just say, hey, this dude came and talked and he gave a suggestion. I'm going to try this out. So if you text me, it may be a few hours before I get back to you. If there's an emergency, do blank, and then figure out a way for them to get you an emergency message. Although I do like to go back to the pre-smartphone or even the pre-phone times, back when in the early 90s, when only the rich people had the phones and they were this big, right? So what happened if there was an emergency? I don't know, you had to wait till you got home to check your voice messages, right? Your beeper, or you had a beeper, I guess, yeah. Facts, right? So we did exist as a human race for thousands of years without being constantly in contact with other people. I remember when I first heard about cell phones, I'm like, who wants to always be available? I said, I'm never getting a cell phone. I like not being reachable sometimes. I like the idea that I can just not be around and talk to you later when I want to talk to you. We've obviously shifted tremendously as a society in less than 30 years, and we're still trying to figure out how to use it responsibly. I think that's where we are right. But if you're going to make those changes, have those talks with people. All right, more tips. Practice the 2-minute rule. That is, and this is what I got from David Allen's Getting Things Done. If it can be done in 2 minutes or less, do it. Don't put it on a list. Making a list of things that take 2 minutes to do is a waste of your time. Don't do that. Align your goals with your tasks. So if you don't know why you're doing something, it's harder to get that done, right? So think about what your goals are, whether they be professionally, personally, whatever they are, and make sure every task you do somehow reaches back to that goal. What our chancellor here at Lone Star College has done, he's created the G1, G2, G3, G4, and everything, those are his big 5 goals, right? So everything goes back to one of those big goals. Everything we do should go back to one of those big goals. And that's what we should be doing in our own lives. Like everything should go back to a goal. If you're just doing something just to do something, unless it's giving you like, by the way, just having fun or something that's pleasurable, that's okay to do. But if you're doing something and you don't know why you're doing it, know why you're doing it, because that's going to help you out. Create space to reflect on your day. Every day at the end of the day, I write down 4 things. I write down 1 memory I want to remember when I look back on this day. I write down, and this is just like a 2-line little mini journal thing. One thing I want to remember, I write down one thing that I did well that day that I was proud of, one thing I wish I had done better that day, and one thing that I appreciated about that day. Maybe some food or something I watched, something I enjoyed. That's me, by the way, you don't have to do that, but find some way to reflect about your day every day. Consider blocking out time in your calendar for various things that are repetitive or that need time, like replying to emails. You can even put into your Outlook calendar. I'm going to check email and reply at 9 a.m. in the morning, at 1 p.m., and then at 4:30 p.m. And block that time out so you actually have it on your calendar and you're doing that on a regular basis. It could be choice management tasks. Actually, this is a project I want to work on. That daily reflection I just mentioned, grading, class prep for those who are professors, just routine daily tasks. I do this every day. So every day at this time, I'm going to set aside 20 minutes to do this. Your Outlook calendar can be such a powerful tool because it's there and it's in writing and it's like, oh, it just told me I got to do this. I got to do this. So we're creatures of habit and that can be really good. Some more tips here. I recommend you overestimate how long something will take to complete. So if you think it's going to take an hour, assume it's going to take 90 minutes, right? It's way worse to say, I think it's going to take an hour and then it takes 2 hours and then, oh man, I just screwed this up. I ran out of time. So overestimate because it's better to have too much time than not enough. If you're easily distracted like me, look into what's called the Pomodoro technique, which is the classic Pomodoro is you do something for 25 minutes and you take a 5-minute break. Come back to 25 more minutes, take a 5-minute break. You do that 4 times, and then you take a longer break. So 2 hours basically of work, and then take a longer break. I do a modified Pomodoro, depending on the time of day. In the mornings, I might do 45 with a break, or an hour with a break, and the afternoons, it may be 20 minutes with a break, and doing it in that method. So that's something that's really helpful for people that have attention issues. Give yourself deadlines for non-urgent projects. If there's no deadline on it, you're just not going to do it. So if nobody's given you a deadline, your boss hasn't given you a deadline, give yourself a deadline because otherwise it's just going to remain on your to-do list forever. And eventually you're going to do it and you're like, oh man, I should have done this so much easier if I just done this earlier. When you do have larger projects, break them into bite-sized chunks with multiple self-imposed deadlines so that you know your boss has said, this project is due August 25th. Okay, well, what are the steps along the way and what are the due dates you're going to give yourself to get there? Take a walk regularly. This is a really simple one. I'm lucky enough to have an Apple Watch that tells me every hour that I should stand up and move around. And I try to do that, right? So do that, walk around, take a walk around your campus, take a walk around your office suite, have conversations with people, refresh your brain every once in a while, whether it be once an hour, once every couple of hours, but don't just sit at your office table, desk, chair for like 3, 4, or 5 hours at a time without getting up. That's not good for you. It's just physically not good for you. And then practice those 4 pillars of self-care I mentioned earlier: sleeping, nutrition, making sure you have some physical activity in your life, and just having me time for yourself. I have 2 or 3 minutes if anybody wants to share their tips that they haven't heard so far today. What do you do for productivity, for making good choices, for reducing distractions, for setting boundaries? Anybody want to share something either online or in person? Yeah.
James.
Hi, James.
Things that I use, and you've probably seen them, these distraction-free typewriters and keyboards.
No, what's that?
Well, I mean, it's like a typewriter old for those of us of a certain vintage.
Yeah.
It's like a typewriter, but it's like a keyboard. It would be like that, but it doesn't have the internet on it. Or it doesn't have any of those things on it, so it's just distraction-free. It really doesn't have a monitor on it. Just have a
Like a screen.
Yeah.
Like an old school word processor from the 80s.
I find that because I do a lot of publication and just in general, and it's great. And it had timers and those kind of things up there, and so that's a really cool thing. And then I saw recently there's even now a distraction-free telephone, a phone.
Yeah.
So it's no longer a smartphone. Basically, we're going back.
It's like a flip phone. I've heard a lot of people say they go back to flip phones, and that can be helpful.
And so this one doesn't even have, it's just literally just for communication.
Yeah. Like what phones used to be.
Right.
They were just phones. It's shocking to some of my students. They're like, wait, people talk on these? I'm like, yeah, that's why we call them telephones. Like, it used to be that way. Did anybody put one up? Pick and schedule, follow it, Felicia. When I'm reading a task, no phone. Yeah, the phone away. And I'm going to start this. I'm going to get much better about my phone, keeping it out of arm's length so that if I do reach for it, I go, oh, I'm trying not to have my phone near me.
That's your,
Yeah, what's that?
it could be your.
Yeah, getting my phone for 5 minutes. Well, I'm done 2 hours of work. I'm going to get on my phone. So I challenge everybody here, reduce your phone time. Even if you, 3 hours, by the way, that's really good. 3 hours screen time, that's really good. Reduce it to 2:45, right? So whatever you're at, try to reduce your screen time somewhat. Right, I'm just about out of time, so I'm gonna just recap. So from this day forward, you will never say the words time management again. You will only use the terms choice management. And if somebody else says time management, you won't correct them like a jerk, but you'll say, let me tell you about choice management. Yeah. Sorting priorities and boundaries to create a choice management system, making sure those are done, reviewing how to minimize distractions and some other productivity tips. All of this has been recorded today, so you'll be able to access later on for those of you who are here live. I do a series of workshops. So if you want me to come to your campus, I'm from Cy-Fair here in the Houston area. If you're from, I know there's got people from Flint, Colorado, and all these places. If you fly me out, I'll be there. If you're anybody local to Houston, I'm happy to go to your campus, talk to you. I'd love to share my ideas. My choice management series includes time management doesn't work, which is similar to what I just did here. That's the name of that one. Choose your own emotions, all about emotional management. Heroes and villains. I'm missing one up here. It's called mistake management. Mistakes, make your own mistakes, how to learn from mistakes. Heroes and villain, which is all about conflict management. Choosing compassion, which is about spreading more love in the world. And then the note to self, I mentioned that already. And then choose your future, choice management and goal setting, how we can create stronger goals through life. So if you want, you can email me. Again, I'm happy to come to your campus, to your group, on or off campus, if you're local to Houston. If you're not local to Houston, I'm happy to fly to you if you'll pay for my plane ticket in my hotel, because I love sharing this message. It's really good. And we have 1 minute and 30 seconds left. I want to thank you for being around here. I'm happy to stick around. I want to thank Gracia here, who brought me in today from my campus. I love coming to Lone Star Tomball. It is my second favorite campus behind Cy-Fair. So thank you. I'm sorry, I gotta have the loyalty there. I love coming out here. Y'all have great people. I love the people that came in online from all over the country. Thank you for being here as well. And if you have any questions, happy to answer them. I'm happy to stick around too. If you have got to go, I totally get it. Thank you very much.